Hello and welcome back. If you're here again, you already know how this works. You don't need belief to listen. You don't need fear either. You just need to stay long enough for patterns to stop pretending they're coincidences. Last time, you saw the performance, the ritual, the careful choreography of grief and relief. Tonight, we move past the stage. Because once an illusion is understood, it stops protecting the person who built it. Some doors don't open because they are summoned. They open because someone else knows where to knock. Tonight, a presence will be approached, a threshold will be pressed, and a ritual will be attempted without fully understanding who might be listening. This isn't the moment everything breaks. It's the moment something real decides to pay attention. You're listening to Vixen Beyond the Veil. This is the Veilkeeper of Mumbai, Part 2, the offer that bent the rules. Let's continue. By the time Friday night arrived, the rain had rinsed the city clean and left it gleaming in fragments. Street lights fractured across wet asphalt, reflections slipping and reforming beneath passing cars. Mumbai wearing its familiar sheen of excess and exhaustion with equal ease. The club sat tucked into one of the city's quieter, more exclusive stretches, its black glass facade deliberately unmarked, the kind of place you were expected to know about long before you ever thought to look for it. Inside, the music hit like a living thing. Bass rolled through the floor and up the walls, vibrating in the chest, in the bones, while lights pulsed in slow, hypnotic patterns that made it difficult to tell where one body ended and another began. The air smelled of expensive alcohol, perfume, and rain-damp clothes, and above it all, an upper level curved around the main floor, a VIP gallery, half hidden in shadow, its occupant silhouetted against soft gold lighting, watching the crowd below like an audience that had paid extra not to participate. Tara slipped easily into the noise, her earlier exhaustion dulled by familiarity, her black dress simple and sharp, hair loose tonight, minimal jewelry catching just enough light to be intentional. The bass thudded steadily beneath her feet as she joined Anushka, Sameer and Kabir at the bar, the three of them already mid-conversation, half shouting over the music, laughing too loudly at something that hadn't been particularly funny to begin with.
Took you long enough,
Sameer said, raising his glass in mock accusation.
We were about to send out a search party.
You know she does that dramatic pause thing,
Anushka replied, waving it off.
makes an entrance, pretends it's accidental.
Kabir slid a drink toward Tara across the bar.
Vodka soda. You look like you need something that doesn't ask questions.
Tara smiled, clinking her glass lightly against his.
Always.
They stood there for a while after that, talking about nothing that mattered. Who was seeing whom, which brand deal had fallen through, which influencer was pretending not to be in a feud this week. Letting the music and the lights blur the edges of the week until time softened enough to forget. Tara was halfway through her drink when Anushka leaned closer, her tone shifting just enough to signal interest rather than gossip.
Okay, don't look now, but someone's been watching you since we walked in.
Tara frowned.
Anushka.
Before she could finish, a waiter appeared at their table, smooth and unobtrusive, placing a fresh drink down directly in front of Tara.
From the gentleman upstairs.
He said politely, nodding toward the upper level before disappearing back into the crowd. Tara looked up instinctively. From the VIP gallery, a man stood slightly apart from the others, not leaning, not talking, not performing the casual boredom common to places like this. his posture relaxed but attentive, as though the room below belonged to him by some unspoken agreement. He raised his glass just enough to acknowledge her gaze. Samir let out a low whistle.
Well, that's expensive energy.
Kabir squinted upward.
Upper floor, private table, no bodyguards. Either very rich or very confident.
Or both.
Anushka said decisively, already pushing Tara to her feet.
You have spent the entire week being everyone's emotional support animal. You are allowed to flirt. I didn't ask for... You accepted the drink.
Anushka cut in cheerfully.
That's practically consent in movie logic.
Tara hesitated, then sighed, lifting the glass.
If this gets weird, I'm blaming you. You always do.
Anushka replied, grinning. The staircase to the upper level was dimly lit, quieter with every step upward, the music dulling into a distant thrum that felt more like a pulse than a sound. From above, the dance floor looked abstracted, movement reduced to color and rhythm. And by the time Tara reached the gallery, the man was already waiting, his posture relaxed, his expression unreadable but faintly amused, as though he had known exactly how long it would take her to decide.
Thank you for the drink,
she said, stopping a polite distance away, her tone even, guarded.
My pleasure.
He replied, his voice deep and controlled, carrying easily without needing to compete with the music.
I'm Rehan Malek.
His smile didn't change, but something in his eyes sharpened.
Nice to meet you, Miss Deshpande.
He added smoothly, watching her reaction with deliberate care. The effect was immediate. Not shock exactly, but a subtle, unmistakable tightening at the base of her spine. The instinctive recalibration that came when a stranger knew something they hadn't been given. She kept her face neutral.
That's usually where I ask how you know that.
Not here.
Rehan replied, gesturing toward a smaller alcove just beyond the main gallery, partially screened off by frosted glass and shadow.
Too many years.
Against her better judgment, Tara followed. The space was quieter, insulated, the bass reduced to a distant vibration, and for the first time since arriving, she felt properly alone with him. Rehan leaned back against the railing, unhurried, unthreatened, his gaze returning to her with open interest.
You're very convincing,
he said lightly, as though continuing a conversation they had already been having.
Most people in your line of work rely on belief. You rely on attention.
Tara crossed her arms, one brow lifting faintly.
Is this where you tell me you're a fan?
In a way, I admire restraint. You never overplay a moment.
She gave a short, humorless laugh.
You don't know me well enough to say that.
Oh, I do.
Rehan said calmly.
You let people speak first. You mirror their grief instead of leading it. You watch pulse points, breathing changes, micro-reactions. You wait.
Her jaw tightened despite herself.
Cold reading.
He continued, still conversational.
Pattern recognition refined through repetition. You plant accomplices. Nothing obvious, just enough to seed familiarity. Online conversations beforehand to give yourself texture. Rehearsed chants with no real language, just cadence. Strategic lighting to soften expressions. Fog machines hidden behind antique furniture to suggest movement where none exists.
The words landed one by one, precise, clinical, devastating. Her pulse spiked, sharp and undeniable. Tara's voice was steady, even as her thoughts raced.
Why aren't you reporting me?
He tilted his head, studying her with something like genuine curiosity.
Because that would be boring. Moreover, I admire craftsmanship.
Then why are you here?
Because you're careful. And because you're honest about your dishonesty,
That's not a compliment.
It is where I come from.
He replied mildly. Then, leaning closer, lowering his voice just enough to feel intimate rather than aggressive, he added,
And because you have potential.
For what?
For something that requires someone who understands belief and someone who doesn't quite believe in it.
He set his phone down between them, the screen lighting briefly, not with a missed call or a name, but with a number so large and so casually displayed that it took Tara a second longer than she liked to process what she was seeing. Her breath hitched despite herself.
One session.
Rehan said, his tone unchanged, almost conversational.
Private. Different rules. A location of my choosing.
She straightened immediately, forcing her eyes away from the screen.
I don't break my rules.
You will for this.
He replied calmly.
Not because I ask.
He nudged the phone slightly closer with one finger, the number still glowing.
But because that is more than you've made in the last 3 years combined.
Her jaw tightened.
And before you tell yourself this is reckless, there will be no audience, no publicity, no recordings. Just you. One ritual. One night.
And what exactly is this for?
Tara asked, her voice steady only because she had learned how to make it so. Rehan smiled, slow and deliberate, the expression of someone who knew precisely when he had someone's attention.
Closure.
He said.
On a scale most people never get to touch.
She shook her head more sharply now.
No.
He didn't react.
No.
She repeated, meeting his gaze this time. Still nothing.
Think about it.
Rehan said at last, already stepping back, the phone disappearing smoothly into his jacket.
I'll be in touch. Location, symbols, everything you'll need.
And if I say no?
Then tonight remains just a conversation.
He replied easily, as though the possibility genuinely amused him. Before turning away completely, he glanced back at her, his voice dropping just enough to feel like a private thought rather than a warning.
You're very good at opening doors, Tara Deshpande.
He said softly.
You should consider what happens when someone wants to see what's on the other side.
Then he disappeared back into the gallery, swallowed by shadow and movement, leaving Tara standing alone as the music swelled again. Her friends waving at her from below, unaware of the number still burning itself into her thoughts. For the first time in a long while, she wasn't sure whether she had just avoided a mistake or accepted an invitation. Tara left the club later than she meant to, not because she was enjoying herself and not because her friends insisted, though they did, loudly, cheerfully, and with a kind of casual concern that came from not knowing what had just happened upstairs, but because her body refused to move with the same certainty it had carried her there. The music followed her out in muffled echoes, the bass dulling as the doors closed behind her, replaced by the softer, wetter sounds of the city at night. Mumbai had settled into that late-hour rhythm, where the streets looked calmer than they were. Rainwater collecting in shallow mirrors along the pavement, headlights smearing into long white streaks as cars passed. The drive home blurred by in fragments. Signals turning red and green without registering, radio chatter she couldn't focus on, the hum of the engine filling the spaces where her thoughts refused to line up. The number followed her. It wasn't that she could remember it exactly, digit for digit. It was worse than that. It had weight. It sat at the back of her mind like a pressure change, the kind you felt before a storm, reshaping priorities without asking permission. In her apartment, the quiet pressed in immediately. She kicked off her shoes by the door, dropped her keys into the ceramic bowl she always forgot to empty, and stood there for a moment longer than necessary, listening to the building breathe around her, the distant hum of elevators, the faint murmur of traffic far below, the occasional thud of someone else's life moving behind concrete walls. She poured herself a glass of water, drank half of it without tasting anything, then leaned back against the kitchen counter, staring at nothing in particular.
More than you've made in the last 3 years combined.
The words replayed, uninvited. She told herself firmly that money was not a reason, that she had built rules for a reason, that she had walked away from offers before. She had, plenty of times, corporate grief consultants, reality TV producers, people who wanted spectacle instead of solace. But none of them had known her real name without being told. None of them had spoken about her work life like it was something carefully engineered instead of cheaply exposed. None of them had looked at her and seen both the performance and the person underneath it. Tara slept badly that night, and the night after that, waking with fragments of half-formed thoughts clinging to her static, her dreams full of doors she didn't remember opening and rooms that didn't exist until she stepped into them. By the second evening, the surprise had worn off. So when her phone rang late on Sunday night, the unfamiliar number lighting up the screen, she didn't flinch. She didn't rush to answer it either. She let it ring twice, then a third time, before finally sliding her thumb across the screen.
Yes.
She said evenly.
Good.
Rehan's voice replied, smooth and unhurried, as though they were picking up a conversation paused only moments ago.
I was hoping you'd answer.
I figured it was you.
Tara said, moving to the window, looking out at the city lights scattered below.
You don't strike me as someone who waits.
A faint smile edged into his voice.
Neither do you.
She didn't bother denying it.
If this is you checking in, you've done that. If it's anything else, you should be clear about it.
I always am. Have you thought about my offer?
Yes.
She replied without hesitation.
Enough to know it's a bad idea. And bad ideas don't usually come with numbers like that.
There was a pause on the line, deliberate and controlled.
You understand what I'm asking for. 1 session. No audience. No exposure. No reputational risk. I don't want a show.
And the rules?
Adjusted.
He replied smoothly.
Not abandoned.
She closed her eyes briefly.
You know what happens if this goes wrong?
Yes. That's why I called you.
Silence stretched between them, filled only by the low hum of the city and the distant sound of a train passing somewhere she couldn't see.
You're not doing this for belief.
Tara said finally.
No.
Rehan agreed.
I'm doing it for results.
And the money?
His voice softened, just enough.
Still the same. Transferred after the session. No delays.
Her grip tightened on the phone.
Send me the details.
Rehan exhaled, a sound almost like satisfaction, though he kept it subtle.
I'll send everything except the location.
Why?
You'll get the coordinates the night before. I prefer freshness.
That's not how I work.
It will be. Just this once.
There was a click on the line. Then his voice again, lower now, more intimate.
Rest well, Tara Deshpande.
Rehan said.
You're going to need a clear head.
The call disconnected. Tara stood there for a long moment, phone still pressed to her ear, the city breathing steadily outside, indifferent to decisions that would never make headlines. Somewhere deep inside her, a rule bent, and somewhere else something listened. The coordinates arrived 2 days after the phone call, just past midnight, precise to the last digit, devoid of explanation, and Tara did not question them, because she had already decided that questions at this stage were indulgent rather than useful. 2 hours later, she was driving through parts of the city that thinned out into long, rain-darkened stretches of road where streetlights appeared less frequently and buildings gave way to shuttered warehouses and half-forgotten industrial lots. The GPS guiding her with quiet insistence until it finally led her to the edge of a compound that looked abandoned but maintained. Old stone walls slick with moss. A rusted gate standing open as though it had been expecting her, and beyond it, a low structure crouched close to the ground, neither fully derelict nor comfortably inhabited, the kind of place that had learned how to exist without drawing attention to itself. Rehan was already there. He stood just inside the structure, jacket discarded, sleeves rolled up to reveal forearms marked by nothing more than an expensive watch and a calm that bordered on unsettling. The interior lit by oil lamps rather than electricity, their glow casting soft, deliberate shadows across the floor where symbols had been etched with careful precision. Tara paused just inside the threshold, taking it all in, her instincts cataloguing details automatically.
You chose an interesting location.
She said finally, setting her bag down and keeping her voice even.
I chose a quiet one.
Rehan replied, turning to face her.
They're often mistaken for the same thing.
She stepped further in, crouching to examine the markings.
These aren't standard.
She said.
Some of them aren't even meant to be used together.
That's why you're here.
Tara straightened.
Before we begin, I need clarity. No blood, no possession, no interference once the ritual starts.
Rehan nodded.
Agreed.
And I conduct it my way.
She added.
You observe. You don't participate.
A pause. Then,
Of course.
she didn't like how easily he said it. Tara moved with practiced efficiency now, laying out her tools, chalking additional lines where the structure demanded balance, muttering softly to herself as she adjusted the circle, grounding it, stabilizing it, convincing herself firmly that this was nothing more than another carefully managed performance, albeit in a less forgiving space. When she finally sat at the center, she gestured for Rehan to take his place outside the markings.
If you interrupt me, we stop.
I wouldn't dream of it.
She closed her eyes, inhaled deeply, and began. The chant she used was one she had memorized years ago, syllables chosen for cadence rather than meaning. Her voice steady, resonant, filling the space with rhythm and repetition. And when she spoke again, it was with the familiar authority of someone who had learned how to sound certain even when certainty was unnecessary.
If there is a presence willing to listen,
She intoned.
if there is a name that still recognizes the call of the living, step forward now, briefly, without harm or attachment.
The lamps flickered, not dramatically, just enough to register. Tara continued, grounding herself through breath and posture, keeping control, always control, until she felt the subtle resistance she had not expected, the faint pressure at the edges of her awareness that made her falter for half a second. Rehan noticed.
You feel it too, don't you?
He asked quietly. She opened her eyes sharply.
You were told not to speak.
My mistake.
He said, unrepentant.
Go on.
She did, pushing through the discomfort, finishing the ritual with deliberate finality, sealing it cleanly, exactly as she always did. And when the last words left her lips, the space settled into silence, heavy but intact. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Rehan smiled.
Interesting.
He said. Tara stood, tension coiling low in her spine.
That's it. Whatever you were expecting, that was all you're getting.
Rehan stepped closer, just far enough to make her instincts bristle, and lowered his voice.
You did very well.
He said.
Better than I hoped.
She gathered her things quickly.
Payment?
She said flatly.
It's already done.
He replied.
Check when you get home.
She hesitated, then slung her bag over her shoulder and turned to leave. As she reached the doorway, Rehan spoke again, his voice softer now, almost thoughtful.
You still count steps when you're nervous.
He murmured.
Always have.
Tara froze.
That habit started after your father stopped walking you to school.
He continued calmly.
You should break it. It makes you predictable.
She turned slowly, heart hammering.
You don't know anything about me.
Rehan's smile did not reach his eyes.
Sleep well, Tara Deshpande.
He said.
Some nights remember more than we do.
And then he disappeared into the night. And that's where we'll pause for tonight. Some moments don't feel dangerous until they're already behind you. A conversation, a look held too long, a rule not broken, just reconsidered. If this story unsettled you, if it made you notice how curiosity shifts into invitation, or how easily attention becomes leverage, then you're listening closely enough. Beyond the veil, nothing ancient needs belief to act. It only needs opportunity. And once something real notices you, pretending it didn't stops being an option. If you felt the tension lingering tonight, you can support the channel by liking, sharing, and subscribing. It helps these stories reach the listeners who understand that not every offer announces itself. We'll continue soon, because what failed tonight did not end. Until then, thank you for listening, for staying present when things slipped, and for trusting me with the pause. I'm Ipsha. This was Vixen Beyond the Veil. Take care of yourself, and when you're ready, step back into the world. Just remember, some silences are not empty.